He has offered everything. He's offered everything. You're right. You know why? Because he doesn't want to fuck around with the United States. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. My name is José Quezada, and I'm going to be your host for the very first show of Equilibrio. I'm a proud Marine Corps veteran who served 22 years. I've been watching my fair share of political YouTube channels, and yes, they are entertaining. That's until you realize that they're all pulling the same levers. They lean hard left or hard right, ditching the data for the drama. I'm going to plant that flag right in the middle. Balanced, unflinching, and always chasing the signal through the static. You know, like I said previously, these shows are entertaining. They are. But I've been kind of let down by all of them. And that's because the guys who host them change over time. The more subs they get, the more they change. This is a channel that's going to do things very different. Another thing that's let me down as well is the fact that a lot of these guys are just talking nonsense when they talk, right? All it is clickbait. They want to say something sensational so that you can kind of click and subscribe and do whatever it is that they want you to do. How are we going to be different? How am I going to be different? Well, you see, when I retired from the Marine Corps, my journey didn't stop there. Coming from parents who didn't even make it past middle school, I made it my priority to chase higher education. I've earned a bachelor's degree in international relations, a master's degree in international relations, conflict analysis and resolution. I've earned a master's degree in business management. I've earned a master's degree in public agency leadership. I've earned a master's degree in political science. And I topped it all off with a doctorate degree in leadership and innovation, just to ensure that I was armed with the academic background I need. So don't worry about doing the studying because I've already done it for you. I spent years grinding through the halls of higher education. Years of grinding through the halls of higher education have taught me how power really ticks, how nations forge or fracture their bonds, and how true leaders spark change that sticks. This was especially the case when I worked as a representative for the United States of America for Central America and the Dominican Republic. Our political system is a complex beast, and ignorance isn't just bliss, it's a vulnerability. But we're flipping that script. Together, we're going to build a smarter conversation, one grounded in facts, not fireworks and hyperbole. But some of you may be asking, well, why not the media, right? Why not CNN? Why not Fox? Why not all these other outlets? Well, I think we all know the answer to that. The media is biased. It's gotten biased over the years, and it's only getting worse over time. So if you're ready to arm yourself with clarity over chaos, stick around. Hit the subscribe, drop a review, and let's turn the tide one episode at a time. Once again, I'm José Quezada. Thank you for joining, and let's get to it. So every day I'm going to pick 4 to 5 stories that affect each and every one of us, right? Anybody that lives here in the United States. So let's start with one of the biggest stories out there right now, which is the situation with Venezuela and Nicolás Maduro. It's no secret that Venezuela is a major hub for trafficking illicit drugs. Now, just to be clear, Venezuela is not really a significant producer. Most of the drugs that come from Venezuela make their way through Colombia. And I think we've got to point out the correlation between Colombia and Venezuela, right? There is a direct connection. But in order to understand that connection, you've got to go all the way back to the times of Hugo Chavez. And in case you don't remember who he is, let me give you a small clip.
I think that the first people who should read this book are our brothers and sisters in the United States, because their threat is in their own house. The devil is right at home. The devil himself is right in the house. And the devil came here yesterday. Yesterday, the devil came here. Right here.
That was him speaking at the United Nations. And the devil, of course, that he was talking about was President Bush. Hugo Chavez was corrupt, and he was absolutely terrible for Venezuela. But Nicolás Maduro hasn't been any better. To understand the connection between the drugs that go through Venezuela and Hugo Chavez, you have to understand that he established ties with the FARC, which made their presence known through the narco-trafficking in Colombia. Now, I can tell you, as a person that conducted 2 training missions to teach the Colombian Special Forces how to deal with the FARC in the jungle, essentially jungle warfare, I can tell you those guys were ruthless. When Nicolás Maduro took over in 2013, he essentially became the gatekeeper, right? For all the drugs that transited through Colombia and pushed through Venezuela, he was the gatekeeper that was pocketing all the money. Essentially, that made Venezuela a narco state. There was also a $50 million bounty placed on Maduro's head. Now, the drugs continue to flow out of Colombia. However, but the United States has started to intercept those boats that are leaving Venezuela headed to the United States. And the United States has shown absolutely no mercy.
Maduro offered everything in his country, all the natural resources. He even recorded a message to you in English recently, offering mediation. What should we do in order to stop that?
He has offered everything. He's offered everything. You're right. You know why? Because he doesn't want to fuck around with the United States. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Take a look at these videos. They show the boats carrying the drugs being destroyed by American unmanned aerial systems.
Off the coast of Venezuela, strike after strike in the Caribbean Sea, targeting small boats allegedly carrying illegal drugs and headed to the U.S. Since early September, 5 such U.S. military strikes, 4 of them on boats from Venezuela.
That has led directly to the tensions between Venezuela and the United States. Essentially, the United States has cut off those funds for Maduro, so he's not very happy. But just to be clear, the cocaine production in Colombia is still very high. However, a lot of those drugs have been stopped from reaching the United States because of President Trump's policies. The Washington office on Latin America reports that there has been a 75% drop in the amount of cocaine that comes into the United States. But that's not enough for President Trump, hence the reason why he said this.
The other thing of drugs, we have a lot of drugs coming in from Venezuela. And a lot of the Venezuelan drugs come in through the sea, so you get to see that. But we're going to stop them by land also.
Just a couple of years ago, in 2023, there were 2,664 metric tons of cocaine produced in Colombia. Ever since Petro came into office, cocaine production has been on the rise. So if we want to stop the flow of drugs into the United States, we have to hit it at the source. So we'll have to keep an eye and see what happens. But I can tell you, as a person that specializes in Latin American politics, the corruption in Latin America is rampant. Most of these Latin American governments are connected to these drug cartels. So their interest in getting rid of them is nil. If you want a good example of a president who's willing to do anything it takes to keep their country safe, rid of crime and drugs, just take a look at President Bukele in El Salvador. You know, I had the honor of working in El Salvador and developing a couple of training plans to help fight MS-13 and Barrio 18. And these plans were very effective, but none of them compared to what President Bukele did when he took office. He absolutely cleaned the streets, and El Salvador is one of the safest countries in the Western Hemisphere. So we're going to have to keep an eye on Venezuela, keep an eye on Colombia, and see what happens in the end. But ultimately, I can tell you the United States is not going to falter. My recommendations to these countries is reach out to President Trump and ask for help. Let him get rid of these cartels. But you know they don't want to get rid of these cartels, so that's not going to happen. So this is the first video with the first story. Let me know what you guys think and what you want to hear more about. Until next time, stay balanced.